What do you think are the essentials to having a great town? Some people will say the number of restaurants, other people will say the entertainment or the nightlife, but I know the majority will say a community that will support you and your family. So what does Steve, Frank, and Brandon all have in common? Well, they're all owners of the Briki Cafe right here in Addison, and I want to talk a little bit more about them and who they are. So let's start with Steve. Steve is a bit of a habitual restaurant owner. He owns restaurants all over the Chicago suburbs, so he's pretty much a veteran in this industry. Frank is the executive chef, so he's the one that designs and puts together all the delicious food here that you have to eat. And Brandon is the one who takes care of the staff to make sure that they deliver the quality service that you come to deserve every single time you step into the door. Now, how did these three come together and end up owning this restaurant here in Addison? Well, if you've been here long, you'll remember that Uncle Harry's used to actually be here until he moved right behind Portillo's, and the people who took after him weren't here for very long. So Frank, the executive chef, actually lives in Addison and noticed it was an empty shop and had some conversations with Steve and Brandon. Now, Steve has a lot of experience with the breakfast and the pancake business, and he wanted to bring that here to Addison, but they wanted to add a little twist to it. They wanted to bring Greek food. They wanted to make sure we had a place in Addison where it could be like Greece in our backyard. So they decided to take a look at the empty shop, and they noticed it wasn't up to their standards. They needed to do a ton of work to get it up to where they wanted to be, and so they needed to take about 6 months in order to completely redo the place and get it up to their quality standards. And 6 months later, after all the hard work, we got Briki Cafe. Now, I can talk a lot about Steve and Frank. They're veterans in this industry. They have a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. But I'm going to take this time in this video to focus on Brandon. And I'm going to tell you why. I want you to think back to your first job and your first boss. When you were either in high school or coming out of high school, how was your experience? Well, if you were like me and a lot of the kids that I knew, to be honest, our first bosses pretty much sucked. We didn't have the best role models, and honestly, in my experience, they did some shady things that weren't really role models for me when I was growing up. But it's different here in Briki Cafe. If you have a kid growing up, or if you are here in Addison Trail High School, coming here and deciding maybe you should work, you definitely have a role model here in Brandon. I'm going to tell you why. Let's go back a little bit and find out who Brandon is and how he got here. So, Brandon first actually started off as a waiter. He was a waiter, and that's how he met Steve. Steve was actually his boss back then when he started out as a waiter, and he worked and he worked. He became a bartender. He continued to work and continued to work. Then he became a manager, and surprise, surprise, he kept working. He became an area supervisor, and then guess what? He didn't stop working, and here he is at 27, part owner of the Briki Cafe. Now, the reason why I want to bring that up is because when you have the right mentorship and the right guidance, Brandon is proof of just how far and how fast you can go when you have the right people with you. A lot of people come to town because of the education and the school system, which is absolutely warranted and a good reason to look at coming into a town. But a lot of people don't look at the local businesses, because those are when your child, whenever your teenage years, is your first experience in the workforce. It's completely different from school. It's completely different from joining a sport. You're really on your own, and you're really developing a lot of life skills and a lot of experiences. And people don't realize how important it is to develop a good first-time experience, especially with your boss. I mean, if you have a bad boss, starting out, you're gonna always have that feeling that bosses suck, bosses are never good, and that follows you throughout your life if you have that at a young age, and you can't get out of that mindset. That's why it's so important to make sure that you have a great community around you when you're young and you're in the workforce. And that's why we're so fortunate to have Briki Cafe and Brandon here in Addison. Now, I got to talk a little bit to Brandon about who was influential in him, who was the most influential person in his life, and he basically said Steve. Steve has been his boss since day one, since he was a waiter, all the way to now when he's an owner of Briki Cafe. And having that mentorship and that role model, Steve taught him everything he knew and helped him get him where he is today. And because of that experience, he's able to teach his staff the same thing and guide them just like Steve taught him, and how he was able to guide him throughout his career to get him where he is today. And he's able to share that with his staff and share that with the people who go to school here and who decide to come to work here, whether you're in Addison Trail High School or not, whether you're young in this community looking for a job and you come here, you're gonna have that guidance and have that mentorship because of Brandon. Now, I gotta talk a little bit more about Brandon and why it's so important for him to work here, why this is so important and meaningful to him. Because I asked him about his schedule, and he basically works here 12 hours every single day. And he doesn't even live in Addison, he lives 45 minutes away. So he's basically spending 13 and a half hours every single day committed to this restaurant. So I asked him, why is it so important to him? And basically he said two reasons. The first reason is it's so humbling for him to be able to be this generation's first boss, to be able to teach them, to be able to guide them, to be able to show them important values and what's important, especially early in your career. You know, a lot of young people, you know, they're starting out in their first job. They might not really care that much. If they're serving coffee, it's just a paycheck. They don't really care. But if you have the right mentor, you have the right role model and the right mentality, a lot of people need coffee to start their day. So if you're the one actually being able to serve that coffee, you're able to have a different mindset and be like, I'm making this person's day versus this is just a job. I just need to serve this coffee and get out of here. And that's the difference of having the right community and the right mentorship. And that's what we have here in Addison with Briki Cafe. And the second reason is just the relationships he has with you. He told me his most frequent customers are either 10-year-olds coming in asking for chicken strips or 80-year-olds asking for coffee. And being able to have those conversations and those relationships with people from such wide walks of life, whether you're young, full of energy, or a little older, but full of wisdom, those kind of relationships help grow a person, and not just him, but the people around him. He's able to share those experiences and help the people around him grow and become better. And it's so refreshing that we have that here in Addison, and we have that kind of community, that when people think about coming to a town, it's not just about the entertainment, the number of restaurants, but it's about the community. It's about knowing your kid is going to have a great school system, and not only that, but a great local workforce and a local community to be able to look up to and be able to work with and grow outside of school, outside of sports. And this is a great place for that. Again, look how far and look how fast Brandon went with the right mentorship and the right guidance. Anybody can do it too. You just need to have the right people around you. And without a doubt, you have that here at Briki Cafe. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I tried something a little different this time. Usually in my past interviews, I kind of write down a script and memorize it. So I felt like it was getting a little boring and people weren't enjoying it as much. So I decided to do a little bit more free-flowing. Let me know, give me some feedback, let me know what you guys think, which style you guys like better works for you. Please leave a comment, let me know what you guys think of Brandon, what you think of the cafe, what you think about the community here in Addison. I would love to hear your thoughts and love to hear some feedback on what you guys think. Thanks.